Hey, it's Sam. Welcome to B&S About Movies. This episode, we're talking about Russ Meyer, one of my favorite subjects, and the Vixen set that Severin's just put out. Russ Meyer is a man given to carny flim-flam, which really is the best kind.
Now, these films, there's a certain theme in your movies, I'd say. You have an obsession with women's breasts. Is that fair?
I wouldn't say it's an obsession, but I care for them a great deal.
And he claimed to have seen soldiers in a stockade being trained for a suicide mission during World War II. Then told E.M. Nathanson, who wrote The Dirty Dozen, which Meyer was given 10% of. He was also part of a team that planned on assassinating Hitler and Joseph Goebbels, with Meyer supposedly shooting the evidence of the leader's death. He also claims he lost his virginity to a girl named Babette. I imagine she had the kind of breasts that eclipsed the sky, and that was paid for by Ernest Hemingway. I've also heard that he shot the photo of the flag rising in Iwo Jima, but there's no way that all of these things could be true. Actually, maybe they might be. It's Russ Meyer. Born Russell Albion Meyer in San Leandro, California, he was the son of a police officer, William Arthur Meyer, and Lydia Lucida Hawk. His parents were both of German descent. They divorced soon after he was born, and he really had no contact with his father during his entire life. When he was 14 years old, his mom gave up her wedding ring and bought him an 8mm film camera. He started making his own movies at 15. And during World War II, as we mentioned before, he served in the U.S. Army Combat Cameraman for the 166th Signal Photo Company. He eventually got the rank of Technician 3rd Grade, which is like a staff sergeant. In the Army, Meyer forged a lot of really great friendships with his men that he served alongside, and a lot of his fellow combat cameramen eventually came to work with him on his movies. You can see a lot of his work at that time in newsreels, and some of it's even used in Patton. When he got back to civilian life, he couldn't really find any jobs. Hollywood was, pretty tight place to get into, so he made industrials, as did most of the great exploitation directors. He worked as a still photographer. Giant's one of the movies he worked on. And he became a well-known glamour photographer. He did a lot of work for Hugh Hefner, and he'd go on to shoot 3 Playboy centerfolds during the first few years of the magazine, including one of his then-wife, Eve Meyer.
How did you get involved in these movies?
Well, World War II, that was a great time in my life. I was a cameraman, but I married a couple of women that were centerfolds and Playboy. In fact, Eve Meyer.
Now, you tossed that off very nonchalantly. I married a couple of Playboy centerfolds.
Where he really broke in was doing the nudies and nudie cuties. And his first feature, The Immortal Mr. Tease, may have only cost a little over $20,000 to make, but it gained more than $1 million on the exploitation circuit. And he gave Meyer the title King of the Nudies. We always talk about the auteur thing. And when we think about it, we think of Woody Allen, or we think about people that make movies that are considered great by the intelligentsia. I would argue that Russ Meyer is one of the greatest directors that ever lived. He wrote, directed, edited, photographed, distributed his own movie, and financed them all on his own with the proceeds from the earlier one, and became really wealthy in the process. He shot a lot of shorts in between, and he made Eve and the Handyman, his second movie, which stars his wife Eve. He decided to change genres. He did Mondo, Europe and the Raw, comedy, Heavenly Bodies. He went to Europe and directed 1964's Fanny Hill, and went into his serious films at this point, what some people call the Gothic period, with Lorna in 1964, followed by 3 movies that kind of combine a novel and people terrorizing one another. Those are Mudhoney, which is very ambitious, but didn't do that well. Motorpsycho, and the inverse version of Motorpsycho, and probably still one of his most famous movies, Faster Pussycat, Kill, Kill. I would argue one of the best movies ever made. Eventually, after making Mondo topless and making some of the money back he lost on his Gothic era, he made 2 more movies, Common Law Cabin and Good Morning and Goodbye. And from this period, there's a lot of exclamation points that always end his movies. And 1968's Vixen is the film that we'll talk about first.
Russ Meyer's Vixen. The story of a girl who loves the joy of being alive and gives herself innocently to the merry chase of life. But like any other game, life has its rules, and if we trespass beyond them, the game can become deadly. There is no stronger bond than the friendship between 2 men. Judd and Niles shared such a bond, a brotherly tie blind to color. And yet, in a moment of violent passion, one led the other to the edge of destruction. Both pushed by Vixen, her frustration nurtured by an empty lack of understanding, a need she sought to fill in the arms of another woman. For to Vixen, the giving of love is an act of nature. Her only weakness, a cancerous evil she was taught, that human beings are to be classified by the color of their skin, an inner sickness that will come close to destroying not only her, but those around her. It will bring them to a moment of truth in an empty sky, with the black man a fulcrum in the deadly teeterboard of life. The hatred inside Vixen fired by yet another hate, the sinister preachings of the communist puppet. Vixen, an adult motion picture experience that is rated X. The management of this theater urges you to see Russ Meyer's Vixen.
Meyer had seen a lot of European art films and said, I can do that. On a 5-figure budget, and I can make just as much money as those. Now, there are lesbian overtones. They say they're not overtones, like they are tones in this movie. But, you have to imagine for 1968, this is an incredible change. Roger Ebert said that Meyer's ability to keep his movies light and farcical took the edge off the sex for people seeing their first skin flick. By the time he made Vixen, he had developed a directing style so open, direct, and good humor that it dominated his material. He's willing to use dialogue so ridiculous, situations so obviously tongue-in-cheek, characters so incredibly stereotyped and larger than life, that even his most torrid scenes usually manage to get outside themselves. Vixen was not only a good skin flick, but a merciless satire on the whole genre. It was also the first movie to get an X rating for its sex scenes, which I consider a compliment because there's no penetration, it's soft.
So it was a historical event, first X-rated
I don't
movie.
know. It's just that we just made a ton of money. I mean, the film grossed in excess of $26 million, cost only $67,000 to make.
Vixen Palmer, played by Erica Gavin, is our heroine. Erica Gavin danced at the Losers, the same topless bar where Meyer, Women Haji, and Tora Satana also bewitch men. She also appears in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, Cage Heat, Erica's Hot Summer, a Gary Graver film, which was once another movie and edited around Erica after this movie, Vixen, became a box office success, and The Strange and Wild God Monster of Indian Flats. Anyways, Vixen lives with her husband Tom, who's Garth Pillsbury, who also shows up If You Don't Stop It, You'll Go Blind, Can I Do It Till I Need Glasses, Malibu High, a movie that promises you from its poster that's going to be happy-go-lucky and is anything but, and The Loch Ness Horror, one of my favorite movies. Anyways, they live up in the woods of British Columbia and they run a tourist resort. Vixen's quite literally always on the mate. The tagline for this film is she woman or animal is more than it lived up to. She starts the film by seducing Peter Carpenter, who plays a Mountie. The moment her husband flies out to pick up the next couple, days, maybe hours after they arrive, she sleeps with the husband, Dave, who's Robert Aiken. Speaking of Gary Graver, Aiken wrote his movie Moon and Scorpio. And then the wife, Janet, who is Vincent Wallace. And what does it say about me that I instantly knew that she was in the Harry Novak produced The Secret Sex Lives of Romeo and Juliet? Also, Meyer claims on the commentary track for this movie, she's in this movie because she agreed to sleep with him. I realize that this is a strange thing to hear in the Me Too movement. I don't think Russ Meyer would be anyone we'd ever include on either side of that argument. But, give Vixen time and she'll sleep with everybody, including her brother Judd, despite his protests. We decided to stop doing this when we were 12. The only man or woman she won't seem to touch seems to be Niles, who's Harrison Page, also from Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, an African-American Vietnam deserter who is friends with Judd. He's in Canada hiding from the draft as he sees the war as a racist endeavor. Mr. Banyan, played by Michael Donovan O'Donnell, wants to pay to fly him back to America, but soon he hijacks a plane and forces everyone to Cuba. Luckily, Tom and Niles work together and take care of this, and Tom decides to get Niles away from the authorities, which means Vixen has to get over racist feelings toward the man. Meyer started this movie without a leading lady, which some would think is a bad idea. In an interview with Roger Ebert in the 70s in Film Comment, he said, "Bravely, I went up to the location for Vixen without a leading lady and let a couple of my henchmen try to find somebody. It was always difficult. But Erica had a curious quality about her. She didn't have the greatest body, She didn't have the up-thrust breasts like the others." As a side note, Russ Meyer would think that such a gorgeous woman was lacking in the breast department. Thing I've said for years that, I never noticed breasts. Nearly every long-term relationship I've been in has been with women blessed with curves like a Russ Meyer actress or a Robert Crumb drawing, so maybe I have watched too many of his movies. I agree with Erica Gavin, who said why Meyer's movies just work. His films come from a different direction than porn. Basically, he was not looking through a camera. He was looking through a peephole. I think that's why his films were so good. He was a true voyeur. Meyer says that after a while, he was able to see that Gavin was one of the main reasons for this film's success.
Had Erica Gavin. Erica Gavin was a lady that the women liked as well.
He thought the scene between her and Judd was one of the best he ever shot, saying that she really displayed an animal quality that had never been able to achieve before. The way she grunted and hung in there and did her lines. It was really a remarkable job. It had to terrify people watching this at just how much Vixen is a non-stop engine of passion. I always laugh when people say they want a woman like her, yet they're probably mentally unable, not to mention physically challenged, to keep her. By the end, the title, The End, suggests that Vixen's never going to stop seducing people. And, why would she want to? Well, maybe some folks in Ohio would want to. Perhaps you've heard of Charles Keating. He was busted in the savings and loan scandal of the 1980s, but way before that, he was helping the government to bust adult films. This movie is still banned in Cincinnati because of him. The financial expert obtained an injunction preventing it being shown on the grounds it was obscene, and the cop seized the print the first day it was shown. It didn't get to play in Ohio, and it cost Russ Meyer $250,000 to defend this movie.
He wants to have a quotation by Charles Keating, the head of the Citizens for Decent Literature, who says, "More than anyone else in his time, Russ Meyer was responsible for the decay of values in American society." Charles Keating. Underneath that, Russ wants to be carved. I was glad to do it. Russ.
After watching this movie on VHS for so many years, I have to say that the Severin Blu-ray is a revelation. I'm used to the muted colors from the VHSs that I have. The multiple generation rips was the only way to see this, and outside of paying exorbitant amounts to get them. Now, those colors are replaced by a lush rainbow of joy. Things are sharper. They're not fuzzy. They're looking as they would in my dreams. I really don't know how to say thank you enough for the folks that worked on this. The next movie on the list is Russ Meyer's Super Vixens.
Russ Meyer, the rural Fellini, serves up a colossal motion picture geared for the young and old alike, the sophisticate and the blue collar. A cinematic smorgasbord of mind-boggling beauty. 6 of the most bountiful women in the world, served up from the lusty table of Russ Meyer. Feast on it. Rated X.
I've been struggling for a way to explain what a big deal it is that Severin is releasing these movies. See, for years, I was worried that because it was so difficult to see the full catalog of Russ Meyer's movies, that he'd soon be relegated to a director only remembered for a few images seen in books or on websites, but movies that no one could find. So to me, the biggest film event of this year has been the fact that Severin, in conjunction with the Russ Meyer Trust, was bringing these films back to the public, newly scanned in 4K from the original negative that was stored at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. After the dramatic films of 7 Minutes and Black Snake were failures at the box office, Russ Meyer went back to what worked best, sex comedies. He said, "I'm back to big bosoms, square jaws, lots of action, and the most sensational sex you ever saw. I'm back to do what I do best, erotic, comedic sex, and I'll never stray again."
But there is no director that I can think of that has influenced Russ Meyer. He has a totally distinctive visual style. It's based upon an aversion to the moving camera. And of course, since he's often shooting on location with no crew, it would be very hard for him to lay down tracks and do a panning or a tracking shot. So he uses lots of setups instead. He probably has 4 times as many camera setups in a movie as the average director. He'll cut from here to here to here, from angle to angle to angle.
He wrote this himself and claimed it was based on Horatio Alger, saying they were always about a young man who was totally good, and always set out to gain a fortune, and he'd always come up against terrible people. They did everything they could to do him in, but he fought fair, and he always survived and succeeded in the end. So that's just one facet of the thing. Super Vixens would be the biggest commercial success Meyer had since Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, making $8.2 million on a $100,000 budget. This is amazing. Clint Ramsey, played by Charles Pitt, works for a gas station for Martin Bormann. Yes, Hitler's personal secretary ran to America and runs a small shop in the desert. And he's married to Super Angel, played by Sherry Eubank. All she does all day is call and harass him at work when she isn't demanding that he come home and make love to her. When a customer, Super Lorna, played by Christy Hartberg, flirts with him, Super Angel flips out and tries to kill him with an axe. He goes to a bar with Super Haji, played by Haji from Faster Pussycat, of course, flirts with him. As a cop named Harry Sledge, Charles Napier, playing the same character from Cherry, Harry, and Raquel, another Meyer movie, tries to sleep with his wife but can't perform. So he ends up murdering Super Angel in the bathtub. He burns down their house and sets up Clint for the crime. Now Clint's on the run for the law. The rest of the movie, just like those Horatio Alger tales, is a series of his adventures. For being molested and mugged by Cal, played by John Lazar, of course, from Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and Super Cherry, Colleen Brennan, being taken care of by a farmer whose wife Super Soul, Ushi Desjardins, assaults him, as well as sleeping with the deaf daughter of a motel owner named Super Eula, Deborah McGuire, and finally discovering his true love, Super Angel, the reincarnated Eubank. Of course, Harry shows up and wants to destroy his new happiness, but Clint only sees him as a friend. Everyone is nearly blown up before the dynamite claims the villain, exactly like Wile E. Coyote. Meyer said the scene where Harry beats, stabs, stomps, and drops a radio in the tub. I love movies where people get killed with a radio in the bathtub. I must confess. To kill Super Vixen was the most trouble he'd had with censors, other than Kit Natividad's full nudity in Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens. He also had to deal with watching this movie in the theater with Eubank and her father, who hated that his daughter was working with Russ Meyer. After the movie ended, Eubank's father said he actually enjoyed the film. One thing that's interesting about this movie, amongst many things, is it's unafraid to show glimpses of the male member too, unlike so many other films by Meyer and other softcore. It's also absolutely ridiculous and so over the top, because they're fake phalluses, that I have no idea who can take it seriously, other than people who get upset about the murder scene or seeing people naked. At least Super Vixen comes back as a ghost, is able to be in charge of her own sexuality, as all ends up happily because of love. What I'm really thrilled about is the Super Vixens release by Severin has the episode of The Incredible Strange Film Show on this, and that's the first place that I discovered Russ Meyer. The final film that Severin's putting out is Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens.
Russ Meyer's Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens. Movie maker Russ Meyer, the rural Fellini, serves up a simple, homey tale of Olympian togetherness, faith-healing, bra-busting humor, jogging, and hulking Herculean masculinity. Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens, a motion picture born to entertainment, vibrant, spellbinding, and so hilariously funny. Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens, an all-out assault on today's sexual mores and more. An end-around attack against women's lib, blasting through the male machismo syndrome, kicking the crap out of convictions, hang-ups, obsessions, the whole bag. Sexually aggressive females, willing, klutzy men, petroleum jelly, gingham and gossamer, tax-sheltered religion, black socks, bedroom prowess, bunco artists, big breast fixations, rear window rednecks, therapeutic cuckolding, the 60-mile-an-hour zinger, born-again immersion, unfaithful girlfriends, the kangaroo pouch, limp-wristed dentistry, the wheelbarrow, and virile garbage men. Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens, a cinematic smorgasbord of mind-boggling beauty. Yeah, gals like Livonia, Flovilla, Junkyard Sal, Eufaula, and the very big blonde. 6 of the most buxom women in the world. Incredible broads served up from the lusty table of Russ Meyer.
Russ Meyer's Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens. 6 bountiful chicks in search of a cluck. Grand, glorious, hilariously funny movie entertainment for adults. Strictly.
Yo, come back!
Russ Meyer's Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens.
The original elements for this film have been stored in less than optimal conditions. As a culture, and let's get hyperbolic and say as a people, we're so blessed that Severin devoted months to the painstaking restoration of this weather-damaged negative before scanning it in 4K and compiling over 2 hours of new and archival footage, all with the blessing and cooperation of the Russ Meyer Trust. It's funny because every Russ movie I see suddenly becomes my favorite. Co-written by Roger Ebert, Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens feels like Our Town, but with a lot of sex. So who are the characters? They'd be radio evangelist Eufaula Roop, Anne-Marie, who is also in Super Vixens, who was first shown mounting Martin Bormann, who's played by Henry Rollins, Otto from Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and also the same role Martin Bormann in Super Vixens. I found it amusing that Meyer both shot war footage as part of the 166 Signal Corps, as we talked about before, the official photo unit in General Patton's Third Army during WW2, and had Martin Bormann play major characters in movies twice. But anyways, Bormann likes to get in a coffin and have Eufaula have sex with him. We also see a salesman going door to door, making love to every wife in town, starting with the one played by Candy Samples, who's listed in the credits as the very big blonde and lives up to that. Her adult film career lasted from 1970 to 1989. Oh yes, there's Junkyard Sal, played by June Mack, who sleeps with the men she orders around her scrap heap. Our hero is Lamar Shedd, played by Ken Kurd, who was not only Fred Up, but was the assistant director on Roar, and a grip on Eaten Alive. That's not a pun. Both definitely Roar almost got him Eaten Alive. He's in an on-again, off-again relationship with his wife Livonia, who is Kit Natividad, a former maid for Stella Stevens and the star of many an adult film up to 2011. She's also in Airplane and The Tomb. Either she's trying to get in his pants when he's trying to study, or he's trying to go into the tradesman's entrance. Congratulations, if you didn't have to look up what that means, you are a pervert. Lamar goes to work at the junkyard while his wife nearly drowns, sexually assaults a 14-year-old boy named Rhett. Steve Tracy, whose career in short life found him in 11 episodes of Little House on the Prairie, as well as the Tom DeSimone directed adult gay film, Heavy Equipment. Then she finds that salesman and balls him too. Side note, in 2025, my goal is to have more people use the word ball as a sentence. Please help me make this dream a real thing. As for Omar, he's trapped by his boss, forced to please her while his coworkers watch from outside. He's desperate as he's trying to better himself in education, and ends up with everyone being fired, Omar heading for a strip club where he slipped a mixie by a Mexican exotic dancer, who is Lola Lagusta, who ends up being his wife. They fight again, she sleeps with the truck driver, and he returns home in time to fight the guy. She saves him by burning the guy and his nether regions with a light bulb. Yes, really.
It's a good scream. It's a good scream.
In an attempt to make things work, the couple visits Dennis, marriage counselor. Yes, you can view both these things, played by Robert Pearson from Claws. It ends with Lamar sleeping with nurse Flavilla Hatch, Pittsburgh adoptee Sharon Hill, who was an actual nurse in Pittsburgh, before playing one of the lead zombies in Dawn of the Dead. She also appears in George Romero's Night Riders and does location casting for lots of Steel City shot films like Rappin', Gung Ho, and My Beloved Lady Beware. Anyways, the nurse sleeps with the wife. The dentist tries to have his way with Lamar. After this, Lamar decides to find God, which means that we come back to Eufaula Root, who baptizes him and nearly drowns him as she mounts him. Lamar leaves, finds the truck driver, Patrick Wright, also a truck driver in Groundhog Day, in bed with his wife again, knocks him out, and finally, he and his wife make love. Meanwhile, Zebulon, DeForest Coben, crushes everyone in the junkyard and takes it over. Eufaula makes love to Rhett, who goes home and makes love to his father Martin Bormann's wife Super Soul, who is UC Dejard playing the same role from Super Vixens. As narrator Stuart Lancaster closes his words, we see Russ Meyer filming the movie in the distance, and Dejard makes love so hard she causes an earthquake. This was Russ Meyer's last movie until he would return in the 2000s to make the video Russ Meyer's Pandora Peaks, and the Playboy video Voluptuous Vixens 2. I don't know anyone better to shoot Voluptuous Vixens than Russ Meyer. By the 1980s, breasts could be surgically made to create the kind of woman that Russ loved most.
The women are sylph-like and wasp-waisted.
Right.
And then they have this big, wonderful shadow casting overhang.
Yes.
That's important. Right?
A precipice, if you will. Yes, well.
Hardcore porn had taken over for softcore, and so Russ Meyer retired a wealthy man. He owned the rights to nearly all of his films and made millions reselling them on home video, working out of his home. If you call the phone number and ads to buy one, probably talk to him.
One thing that Russ has never made is hardcore pornography. And I think he has two reasons for that. The first one is he's not interested in it. He is not interested in gynecological details and the plumbing of the human reproductive system. He is interested basically in from the chest up, and he likes big breasts. That is his specialty. But apart from that, he also likes this comic strip kind of Little Abner, larger-than-life, slapstick kind of universe that he has created. And the Russ Meyer universe is as distinctive as the universe of any other artist of our time. You can look at 5 seconds of a Russ Meyer picture and know that it's a Russ Meyer picture.
His grave says King of the Nudies. I was glad to do it.
Hello, listeners. This is the ghost of Carolyn de Fonseca. And I would like to read you the parental guide warnings from IMDb for these movies. For Vixen, lots of talk of sex, including being horny, promiscuity, infidelity, and what men and women want from sex. For Super Vixens, when clothed, women often are showing a lot of cleavage and legs. Throughout the film, there are women that are fully nude or topless, with breasts and butts visible, or in sexy lingerie, some of which is sheer. For Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens, constant female nudity, including breasts, butts, and pubic hair. Often the women are fully nude and engaged in a sexual act. Some male nudity as well, mostly of butts, but some penises are visible, including erections that prop up underwear. There you go, parents. Sam, don't let Cubby watch these.
That's the Vixen collection, which you can now get from Severin. Ordering info will be in the show notes. If you have a question or would like to talk movies, you can reach out to me at bnsaboutmovies@gmail.com. You can visit the site, bnsaboutmovies.com. And hey, if there's a movie you'd like me to cover, send me a message. We'd really appreciate it if you rated the show and shared it with your friends.